Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and barbed hire duels to that 6+++ show. I'm your host, Tom, very, very lowest of men. Back once again with the lovely nerds of 6++ to talk all things Warhammer 40,000, and it's tier list time. We didn't know what we were going to do today. Tier lists are nice and easy. Everyone loves a tier list. They're fun. And it's too sunny to overthink what you're prepping for your content. So that's what we're going to be bringing you. But we're not going to waste too much time. We're going to be getting into it pretty soon. I'm going to introduce my cast of players. Do shout out in the chat. Let us know what you're up to. We will, of course, do a tiny bit of self-promotion. And then we'll crack on. So I'm going to start where I like to start with my dear leader, Chris. Christopher, how are you?
First day back at work today. So, but other than that, I'm all right. How are you? Did you have a good weekend?
I had a very good weekend, thank you. Yes, I played up in Home Nation singles, which was awesome. Just 5 exhausting games against very, very good players. It's like sort of last round of a GT, just every game. So I was fucking exhausted by the end, but super, super fun. Had an absolutely amazing time. Lots of very, very close games. I think 3 of my matches were decided by 1 point. And the only one I want to shout out is Alex Fowler, because I had an incredible game with Alex Fowler. I've never played him in person before, and basically I was quite confident in that game, and then he just did lots of clever things, and then I was like, damn. And then he won by 1 point. Sneaky little bastard. So very, very well played, Alex Fowler. He's absolutely brilliant. Every single game against him, I just get this sinking feeling after about 3 turns. Like, it's just not letting me kill him. It's just not letting me kill him. And then he flips it. It's ridiculous. What a talented little guy he is.
For next time.
Yeah.
Ask him about beast packs.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, whenever I've had Joy, it's been running at him, so I imagine the beast pack might work in that sense.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Have you had any 40k in your life, Chris, or has it all been back to school focus?
No, but I had Middle Earth in my life.
Oh, my word, that's exciting.
Whilst you were off gallivanting with the international folk, Lee and I were at Lee's house with rhinos and cardboard boxes and Lewis Hamilton's helmet for terrain as 5 ring race charged at a bunch of Mirkwood elves.
Oh, beautiful.
And that was fun times. And fun fact, ring race have got this rule, which means you have to pass a courage test to charge them. And
wow.
elves have got a courage of 4, but you're at -2 to charge them, so you just need to roll 6 on 2 dice. I didn't do that very often, so it was good times. But no, it was good because he had this really weird army. It meant that we was constantly trying to learn quite a host of different rules, all like the magic spells. And
that's quite a finicky, complex one, right? Yeah.
And so it was just even that little hint made you realise there's quite a lot of depth to this game, and there'll be so much to explore, which was good fun.
Super, super cool. Yeah, they're looking forward to some more Lord of the Ringsing, and it sounds like it's good to get started because it's one of those things that we talked about. We haven't actually got it moving, so well done for getting it moving. I'm also joined tonight by my sensei, the man in blurry green. It's John Scrivens. He's looking very sharp. You had a haircut, John?
And a beard haircut.
Yeah, it's the beard trim.
It got to spring, so I was like, I've got to trim it off because I was starting to get to the point where I was like, it's everywhere, even when it's sculpted. So I was like, you know what? I look thinner now, so I've lost weight. There you go.
Okay. No, it's looking very sharp. And have you done any Warhammering, John?
I have. Guess what? I played on Friday at Tring Club. I played Kill Team.
Kill Team would have been my guess. Yes,
because there's a league on. So I played a game where apparently I played a game of can you roll 1s and 2s for 2 hours, and the answer is I can.
Yes, you've always been good at that, particularly 2s.
But then on Easter Sunday, because I was sneaking off and gallivanting, I went to an RTT at Darkfire Cafe, and learned I could roll lots of 6s for 3 games, which was good fun.
That's beautiful. That's very, very successful.
And then I lost my last game by 3 points because I didn't kill a Bloodthirster that was on 3 wounds at the end. And I've already worked out about 5 ways I could have killed him if I'd just taken my time at the end. But that age-old thing.
Was it the one that kills the thing and then goes up in the sky? Was it that guy?
Yeah, but it was the end of the game. If I killed him, I had Assassinate, and also it flips the point. So it didn't matter if I was trying to kill what was on my home objective because I just killed the Bloodthirster and take it off him. And if the Reavers had gone on as well, he would have been worth 1 less. So if all 5 of the Deathwatch Knights had survived the combat, even if he hadn't died, I would have had the point. But yeah, it swings around about.
It's worth taking a little pause sometimes for that. I mean, I do that a lot where I just rush through that final turn. And awesome. Sounds like a very good day, though.
Yeah,
very nice.
Samael was great fun moving 21 inches across the board with some bikes. Was
this Stormlance Samael?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very good.
That's a drug.
Very, very good. Excellent. Speaking of drugs, Ben Pierce is also here. Ben Pierce, how are we doing?
I'm good. This is becoming a recurring theme, Thomas.
Some old
Words
Toby in
about
his
this.
pipe.
Well, I was actually going to go with RTTs, and I thought, we'll go with drugs instead.
Well, there was
More
no
believable.
RTTs this weekend, Tom.
No, none at all.
Tell you.
So what have you done this weekend?
Oh, I doubled it, and I went for a GT this weekend.
Oh, amazing. Wow,
Jesus, I was
okay.
at, Hellstorm up in Sheffield at the Outpost.
Fantastic, we love those.
Lovely little event. Only 21 players, but still nice, and the vibes are always immaculate up there. So we had a good time. I snagged myself a best painted again, and
Well done.
Got my signature 3 wins because I can't do any more than that.
Oh, but it sounds like it was you gave a real good go into a couple of the better armies in the game right now. Which
Gave it a try.
Drukhari is tough, right? It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still enjoying the Reaper.
Apparently.
Yes. Yeah, that was my takeaway from this weekend. I haven't necessarily respected Custodes as much as I should have done. I think having now seen them played a bunch, it's good, that detachment. We'll get to it. Obviously, we'll go into a tier list place in a moment, but it's definitely got some game, especially when it's not playing on UKTC, where it has to try and cross these huge open spaces. And Chris is making a sad face.
I was going to say, if this entire conversation is how great Custodes are, it's going to make me feel shit.
No, I do think for UKTC, I think it's a different ball game for them. I think it's much less straightforward. All right, guys. We don't have a ton by way of self-promotion, but we will dive into it because we are very good at self-promotion, possibly the best. Before we do that, we're going to just shout out the chat. There's tons of you here. Black Crow Gaming Sam is in. Sharuni is in. Excited about the tier list. John Black is in. Hello, John. Had a very fun game with John, coaching game earlier on. Well done. Zero says, whatever happens next, I laughed hard at the title, so I'll always have that. So, I mean, the idea came, I was driving back home. I drove the lovely Josh Cowlard of Mind Goblins home to Southampton after Home Nations, which for me is essentially a 4.5-5 hour drive to do all of that in the day. And we're just deciding on content, and we're like, I was like, what do I do? And he's like, oh, you do tier list stuff. And I quote, he said, you do that pin the win rate shit. He tried to stop himself, but it had already come out of his mouth. He was like, you do that pin the win rate shit up. And I thought we'll just do a meat and potatoes tier list instead. If Josh isn't a fan of the unconventional kind today. So that's where that's come from. Matt Riley says, are we adding EC for the first time? Oh, yes. I think it would be very pertinent to put Emperor's Children in here, and I'm very interested to see what the others think of it. Mr. Fellblade's in. Gastronauticon is intrigued to see where Codex Moth lands. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting to see where that lands. Got some love for Scrivo's new lid is getting some love. Sam Dunn is in. I know he's building Emperor's Children because I've seen the photos. Oninada is in. Gordon Chung is in. Goodness, look, tons of you. J-Rock says, love the name of the show. Yeah, thank you. That's the mood we're in. That's very much the mood we're in. Zero prep has gone into this other than thinking of a silly title. And that's where we're at right now. I just think it's important that that's the attitude we have for the next few weeks. Aidan Brockhurst is also in. And Seth says, I expect Orks to be highly ranked. So do I, to be honest. Still pretty sexy as a faction right now, Seth, don't you worry. Okay, self-promotion. Chris, is there anything massively needing self-promotion right now?
Well, we did do a little summon, little teaser. If you go check our socials last week, little compass. Don't know what that's about. Maybe everyone will find out in coming week or so. Maybe.
Stuff in the horizon.
Are we going on an adventure, Ben?
Quite possibly. Quite possibly.
Well, obviously, we have our masterclass.
We do.
Our list building masterclass, May the 1st.
Yep.
It's a 2-hour session, £20. Full details can be found Discord, Facebook, all those sorts of places. And yeah, that should be really good fun. We've already got the framework down for that, and I think that'll be
going to be massively exciting,
really informative for anyone who wants any help with general list building skills.
Completely, yeah. We've had a whole bunch of people interested. I think we're aiming to keep it to about 20 people max. I know at least 15 have declared interest. So if you haven't yet, you can just say that all the details are in our Discord. There's a channel there for it. So get in the Discord, have a look. And if you send the money over, you can just get your ticket secured. I think there's still plenty left that are not accounted for. And it's going to be really fun. As much as anything, there's a bunch of channel fans who I haven't yet got to hang out with and talk to, in a sort of teaching environment. So it's going to be really fun, and we will try and endeavour to teach you some list writing tips and tricks as well. I've spotted a Greg Chamberlain there. Well done, Greg Chamberlain. On a storming weekend, Greg Chamberlain and I were cooking up a little Hearthband Votann list. People are not ready to get 6-inch deep struck on by Hearthguard. They don't like it. It hurts. And Greg was providing some hurt for people, so very well done, Greg, indeed. Fallon's also in. Hello. B-Mob is in. Brilliant. Okay. Just a reminder, please do hit like and subscribe. Please do leave us a comment on the video. That all helps us to please the algorithmic gods of YouTube and our fickle mistresses. And if you would like to sign up to support us financially as a YouTube member, we've got over 100. We'd love to have you involved as well. And you can, of course, sign up as a chapter master to unlock coaching via myself and the boys as well. We've got tons of mentees that we're working with, having a really good time with that. So yeah, if you're interested in leveling up on an army, come and get involved. Brilliant. Okay. 11 minutes. For the people that don't like how long we take, that's one of our quicker run-throughs, to be honest. Is there anything we want to just talk about for a bit to just draw this out?
We've got some greatest greatness videos coming out this week.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about greatest greatness.
I've been painting my blood angels. I've got a decision to make. Here is my beautiful Dante.
Oh no. Yeah, there he is.
But do I weather him? Because the rest of my army is all weathered and up for a fight, or you can definitely see that. But he's not. He's shiny at the moment. And
what's your headcanon? Has he been leading them on campaign for a long time?
So the army's been fighting for a long time. It's one of those things like, I should weather him and battle damage him up.
You could justify it. You could say like Dante and the Sangard have just arrived to save the day,
but
right?
my new Sangard also really dusty and orange.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough.
So what I'm going to do is I think I will damage him up, and then when I get the Sangrenor, he will be shiny because he's just teleported down from the warp.
Yes, damn right he has. Ready to do 4 dev wounds to something and then die.
To a grenade.
What an absolute legend. Yeah,
my favourite.
That was an extra minute, so now we've moved up.
Yeah, so I've just remembered I actually have a story. I wouldn't want us to get into the show too soon. Hi Theo, good to have you here as well. I want to tell a story about this little guy. This is Uthar the Destined. Uthar the Destined. Greg has been testing Uthar the Destined in Hearthband. Me and him are going to make a video on Hearthband, all the wonderful things you can do. So I'm not going to give too much away, but spoilers, you can make Uthar pretty tasty in this detachment. You can do some quite funny things with him. So Greg was like, can you bring Uthar to Home Nations? I was like, don't worry, Greg, I'm the sort of guy that can be relied upon to do these sorts of things. I'll do that. And then on the day I was going up to Home Nations, I drove to pick up Josh Cowler from Winchester. And as I got to Winchester, I went, shit, I've forgotten Uthar the Destined. So I went, Josh, mate, we're going back to my parents' house. We're going to get Uthar, then we're going to hit the road. We went back. I went to the garage. I got Uthar. Then I went to the toilet, left Uthar in the kitchen, got in the car, drove to Home Nations, and then I got a text from my mum hours later being like, there's a dwarf in the kitchen. What's this dwarf about? So despite remembering and going back, I still managed to lose him. Still managed to forget him. So I am sorry, Greg. Very sorry about that.
What did Greg do?
I think we've got a Carl off someone and it was all fine. I think it was, or an Iron Here champion or something. They were pretty, I mean, you've been to these sorts of element events, they're pretty lax about hobby and painting. I think that's a reasonable thing to say. Yeah.
That was the rules I heard.
Yeah. But certainly worth shouting out Robert and the rest of the guys who ran Home Nations because it was awesome. It was really cool. Nice to have the US over there. The US came and played. I don't know when they last did that. It's been a long time. So it was awesome to have John.
And then you let them win.
And we did let them win. Yeah, we let them win by being outpaired. And yeah, so it's just very well done to them for winning the event. That was awesome. A lot of fun had. All right. So the IC chief says, is that Ben and Scrivo's cousin?
Hobbits and dwarves are separate things. God.
Very different entities, Josh. We won't have that. You, as a Rattling main these days, should know better than that. Should know that those people are very worthy of their own consideration. Alrighty. That is now done. So if you're interested in just what this video is about, buckle up. This is it. We're going to it now. Done all that patter, all that human interaction. Let's get straight into fueling grievances, because that's what content should really be about. So the way this is going to work is I'm just going to let my guys pick things and talk about them. And we're going to be ranking them loosely on, I think, strength and power and excitement, all these things. I think when we assess it, it does tend to be we always go a little bit on how a player base is feeling, because I do think that matters. I don't think it's purely about whether the 1% are winning slightly more of their games in their finals with them. But I think getting an overall sense of the strength of the faction is really useful. I think having our teams hats on, we love teams. It's quite interesting thinking about how armies function in teams as well, whether that has any bearing in how we rank and perceive of their strength as well. And we're going to work our way through. They can be as detailed or as trite as they like. You in the chat can obviously absolutely chime in and pipe up as well. And obviously, in a vain attempt to squeeze money from you, if you super chat an army, we'll just immediately cover it, because why not? That seems fine. I don't anticipate anybody doing this, but if you feel like being that person, we will, of course, love you forever, because we want to play 40k on a yacht, and we aren't going to get there without super chats. So, Chris, you're the captain. You get to pick first, mate. Who do you want to cover?
Well, as someone who's playing so regularly at the moment and taking on the entire field, I'm really excited to give many a qualified opinion here. I guess I'll start with one of the armies I kind of know. So I'll start with Grey Knights.
I'm actually genuinely interested to hear what you think about Grey Knights.
Well, me too. So they recently did pretty well in the hands of Marcus Hinson at Sheffield. He managed to get to the ultimate final round and then lost to the ultimate final boss, Vic. But I think that shows that in the right hands, with the right run, they are capable of doing well, I think. I think you are probably at the moment leaning more into the shooty builds, as you'd expect. Obviously, they have suffered the nerf to Purgation Marines.
Yes.
But interestingly, that doesn't seem to have affected them particularly, because I think that was potentially some sort of crutch. And actually, they're going, well, actually, now I'll just have units that score missions rather than sit in the ruin and just reroll all their hits. So I think you can definitely see 5 or 6 Dread Knights doing well at the moment. People are starting to try and put in a lot more Knights and just lean into that skew of, but have high OC, because obviously Knights are the OC 8. So if you have 5 Dread Knights and like a Warglaive, or some people try and triple Helverin and stuff. So I think that's certainly a line that if you get the right pairings at an event, or maybe you go teams, then actually that's quite a nice place for them. I think they just have a decent ceiling, but they are just very hard to play. They don't have much stuff, and you're going to struggle to do that well with them unless you get a good run or you are a very good player. So I would put them in B tier.
That would be kind of where I was feeling as well. I think when we've not seen a ton of play by non-specialists in recent times, have we? It's not like there's people rushing to be on it. I do think the artillery nerf definitely did hurt them, but they're just very consistent. Like whenever you play Grey Knights, it's not an easy game by any stretch. They're always going to do some stuff you really don't like. I think they've got a lot of skill expression still, and as you say, potentially actually being freed of lurking on the artillery spam is actually going to be quite good for them. You'll discover some other stuff. Yeah, very, very good. I want to shout out, thank you very much to Seth Oster for the Yacht Fund donation. That's amazing. The yacht is one step closer. That's absolutely awesome.
We are so close. We're about 0.1% there.
Black Crow Gaming Sam has said, I'm sick of World Eaters always being last. That's very fair. So for £2, we are that cheap. We will, of course, do World Eaters next. Is there anyone here who likes World Eaters who might have an opinion on them? John's not saying anything.
Wake up.
John?
My colour's changed.
He's making his life.
The background's gone red. That's what that was. I see.
Being
Very
sneaky.
subtle. Okay.
Hope you enjoyed that one, podcast listeners.
So,
John, obviously we've got the... do you remember when we didn't tell the podcast listeners that Ben just had dropped out of the podcast? After like 10 minutes, and people will just be listening to that being like, Ben's not having much to say on this episode. We've got the book ahead, John, so we won't worry too much about the book. But if you were to give an assessment of where World Eaters have been and are right now, how are you feeling?
I think they're very solid. They've got some predators, because at the end of the day, they are essentially a melee pressure army that can have some guns, but you don't give them guns.
Yep.
So they kind of have a good role. I think there's a place for them in teams still.
100%, yeah.
You don't really see them taking out big events, because there is, I think, better armies that are better at kind of being more all-round. whilst also kind of punishing armies that are kind of a bit one trick. I think they've kind of got that similar sort of vibe at the moment to me as Grey Knights. They're kind of they're there, they're present, but they're not in big numbers. So it's like it's the calm before the storm, right? Like if we believe the rumors, they're going to be dog shit. If we read one of the community's articles, the rules haven't changed.
I mean,
So
that was a bold move from them, wasn't it?
I just feel like we're in this
still
sort
just
of
as
limbo.
good, guys.
They might be fine. They might not be, but it's a box, right? It's a combat patrol box. If we open it, if we don't open it, is there a combat patrol in there? We never know.
Schrodinger's combat control box.
Yeah, very much so. So what are we thinking then, John?
I think they're somewhere in the B. Like they're good,
I think that's fair.
but they're not great. They're not wowing me at the moment. I still want to play
It's probably at least worth shouting out their little forward deploy lads, right? That does change things for them a little bit. I think
spicy.
There's going to be some people out there who have forgotten to put their infiltrators down mid-board against World Eaters in the last week or two and have been unpleasantly surprised by what has happened next. And I wish I'd watched some of those games. I think...
I love how lazy people get sometimes, where they just expect things.
Yeah.
It's very easy to... And like things like the changes to some of the Chaos Demons, like Flesh Hounds, that data sheet is quite exciting now.
Oh, the Khorne Demons in general are just very good, right? So I think... Actually, for me personally, this is something we can talk about another day. But as John will know, my first love in this game was Noble Demons souped with Death Guard, and I am so hyped for these books that are combining the different demons and legions. I just personally, for me, that's how I love those armies. And I suspect there's going to be some really cool things for World Eaters souping the different demons in. And Black Gaming Sam is completely. I mean, I'd say not to comment too much on rumours, but obviously there's a rumoured 6-inch consolidate and pile in.
That wasn't a problem.
If that is an army-wide feature, then I'm sorry. Having done awful things with just one unit with access to that in bio, that is game ending. That is game ending when it cascades in the right way at the right time, right? So I'm very excited to see how that looks like in practice. I think that's really, really cool. And John Black asked, what would a better Angron dynamic be? He's just an angry guy. He's just going to be smashing stuff. That's what he's always about.
Therapy, man. Just needs therapy.
Yeah. I'm going to shout out to Yeshua's Natsarim, who has very generously super chatters. Thank you very much, guys. You're all being phenomenally generous. We appreciate it a lot. Go ahead and put us in trash tier. Templars, if you wouldn't mind, gentlemen. Cheers from across the pond. Anyone want to field Black Templars, or shall I make this my first one?
Well, you did. Did you do a video on it, or you were going to? Or something?
Yeah. So I have done the video. The video is done. But there's a fun second bit to this that is actually very important context, which is having talked about all the units and combinations I could spy in this Black Templars attachment. I then went and tried to write a list, and it's just all so expensive. It's completely insane. Like you cannot get enough stuff, especially the Templars stuff, into a list to build anything where you feel like it functions. So all the good lists I was writing for Templars and for that detachment were like Assault Terminators and Blade Guard and just trying to find cheap stuff elsewhere. So I think Templars are in a bad spot. Now, they are still Space Marines, and Oaths is always powerful. They have a whole bunch of different detachments you can run them in. I think the issue Black Templars have is that probably the best Black Templars lists barely have any Black Templars in at all. That is a very rubbish place for their player base to be. I'm loath to put them in D because I do think you can win a bunch of games with Black Templars, but I think they have systemic issues right now. I wouldn't be particularly happy if I was a Black Templars, but as I said in the chat, having caught feelings a little bit when I was reading all their rules, I was like, oh, these are sexy rules. I then tried to write a list, and I was like, don't worry, this was the cold shower of list writing, and it's put me right off the idea, so we're absolutely fine. So I'm going to put them in C tier, and I suspect they'll be very bottom of C tier for me personally, and let's see how the others form up around them.
Because they're on the
it's
right?
not a good time. Yeah, they are. I think, and
So
they clearly
they
need a rego, don't they? They need a bit of love and a bit of adjustment. Templars lists, ironically, do just pop up in competitive innovation. Sometimes they can still make it because the baseline Space Marine rules and detachments are still very powerful, and stuff like Helbrecht and Grimilda as units are powerful. I just think you can't really write a list that looks and feels like a Black Templars list and take that as far as you'd like to, and that's a rubbish place for the faction to be, I think. Okay, which then, Benjamin, means it's your turn unless anyone's going to throw more money at us. Hopefully not. Oh, it'd be awful if we kept getting money all leaving.
Stop. Oh, no.
Stop. Oh, no, we can't.
no,
Oh, no. Seriously, though, thank you very much, guys. You're awesome. Ben, what would you like to start with?
So I think I'm going to touch on something that keeps touching upon me. I'm going to go with some demons.
Okay, this is a spicy one then, Ben. Where are we putting Demons?
Demons, I would like to see them in an A tier. And I think that's why. I think they live in an A tier. So Demons start of the edition. They were pretty poor, right? They did not see much play, but they have sequentially got better and better and better. And their index detachment is crazy good. There is such a great suite of tools in there, and near enough every unit is completely playable in that index. I think you could pick any one of the units out there, and you could quite happily find a place for it in a Demons list at this point in time.
I agree. They've been back through and made them all better, right?
Yes, 100%.
The adjustments around the God books have sort of
really it's helped them massively, hasn't it?
These
God books coming out, like, they're looking so good. Slash Demons, maybe not so much these days, but
no,
they probably deserved it. It's fine, I guess. But near enough everything else, look at the Great Unclean one up to T13 pretty much all the time now, with his silly gift that gives him silly durability. Be'lakor, what an absolute monster he is.
So I played against New Be'lakor for the first time in my final game, which was against Lewis Smith from Ignite. I love Lewis. We've had some cracking games. Be'lakor just absolutely fucked on me on his own. Like he just kicked my shit in. Like he's teleporting around for 2 turns with some Havocs that I can't shoot because he's keeping that at range. The Havocs are just killing all my tanks. Then Be'lakor's like, I'm done with this now. Runs into the middle, starts smacking Aberrants, kills like most of a 10-man brick on his own. And then not done with that, after I bring the unit back, he flies off to start killing it again. It's just unbelievable. He's so much better than he was. It's remarkable.
So good. Yeah, no, the whole index is great. It plays the missions fantastically. It can kill you. It will control the board, and you won't be able to kill it. Like, it's just got everything it wants. So good.
And it's got that skew. I think Invuln skew and toughness skew is always effective in the game. They have that, but not on T3 chassis and bodies, right? So that they're wildly strong. The new detachment, the Shadow Legion, where you can get the CSM souped in as well, that is I'd say it's one of the most fun looking detachments in the game right now. I think it looks amazing to play. I think they're in a phenomenal spot. Absolutely phenomenal spot. Great shout. Alrighty, welcome Picklex, lovely to have you here. Welcome everybody, thanks for joining us. We are tucking into our tier list, and just a reminder, if you want your faction shouted out immediately, chuck us a little super chat, keep that party coming. I'm going to take it back to Chris though now. Chris, there must be another army that you know something about. What would you like to do next?
Well, first I'd like to shout out all the people who are currently commenting saying, why don't you guys put timestamps on? It'd be really helpful. This one's just a shout out for you that no. I'm actually going to go a bit different here. I'm going to pick one which I think's been a bit of a come out of nowhere, realistically, in the recent meta, which is Chaos Knights.
That's a great show. Really good show.
All of a sudden, suddenly, it was just around the time of Mordaka, it was like Chaos Knights suddenly started doing well, and they've actually been putting up some reasonable numbers. And on top of that, if you look at the Home Nations team event, nearly everyone took Chaos Knights in their aim.
They did.
There's one team that didn't. I think Chaos Knights are actually in quite an interesting place.
They really are.
As to the reason why, I think generally they are just pretty decent army, right? High OC, it's a stat check. If the meta is formed around not so kind of much into killing heavy vehicles, if that is the state of the meta, then actually they're going to be doing okay. I know everyone was terrified of fire dragons, but
how many fire dragons units do you have, Chris?
Exactly.
How many knights are there? The ratio doesn't look favourable.
Once they're in range, they really like being next to a Chaos Knight army, right? Once they kill one,
they absolutely love that. Yeah.
So I think they're a pretty good spot. I'm going to put them in A tier. I don't know whereabouts in A tier they will fall, but I think they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I'd rank them there. They've been putting up event results. They're in teams. They're very popular. They are askew. I think both flavors of Knight, to be honest, are actually having a low key, very good time right now. But Chaos Knights just have that go wide. Since they got some points drops, so now you can just have 13 Knights in one list.
Crazy.
Shout out to Gordy, who is in the chat. Dirty Meta Chaser, my mentee. I love you, Gordy. But he has just finished in a very uncharacteristic 6 or plus initiative. He has actually just finished a project. A beautiful Chaos Knights army. What a loser!
Team, right?
Yes, he's done them on a Blood Bowl pitch, which I'm really excited to see developed. I hope we're egging him on to do some sports pitch lines and additional bits on there. But yeah, they're having an amazing time. I think they're in a great place. Koldash says timestamps are in D-tier. You're completely right. I mean, John, if we could get a stamp added at some stage, maybe we can put stamps in D-tier here at some point.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put timestamps for every time we mention timestamps.
That's actually a great idea. Yeah, gang deliberate.
What's this one?
Gang deliberates timestamps. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. I think that's a good shout. No, really cool. Okay, moving it along. I will let you have a pick next, John. What would you like to talk about?
So, because Seth donated, he's a big Orks fan. So
yes, he is. Orks. Yes, so the man himself.
I think there's despite Mordaka kind of getting given the kind of the sucker punch back down, I still think Warhorde and to some extent Tactical Brigade and even fringe cases Dreadmob are all really, really quite solid. And
they really are.
We're seeing them doing the work, and people that own Ork armies haven't just been shelving them; they're still playing them, and they're getting great joy out of them. And I think it's up there. I think it's got the similar sort of situation that the Chaos Knights have. That you'll see them being taken to events and doing pretty well. Not necessarily taking out an event, but it's up there. I think they're doing better than World Eaters in that respect.
100% they are.
And I kind of want to say that they're probably below Chaos Knights because I feel like they're a harder army to, like, in a tier kind of sense as well of, like, people aren't going to be picking them up and pivoting to them. Whilst Chaos Knights have got that advantage.
Yes.
You buy 6 boxes of War Dogs, you've got an army.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different ways people are playing Orks, right? Whereas I think the CK list has been pretty established and just is a solid method.
You're done. Yeah, I think that's where it makes that quite rewarding.
I think you're right that I think Orks have a lot more to give. I think we're still waiting to see exactly what the post DACA lists look like, right?
Yeah, I still think they're going to see shooting armies. But I think I have this feeling that we're going to see shooting armies playing that way that people were doing more DACA, though, where you've got that big pressure of, like, bodies, and then you come out to deal with the bodies, and then they bring out the guns. Because those guns are still good, they're just not quite as deadly efficient.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely valid. And I think the reality with Orks is there was one of those things where when we're assessing power, the reality for them in recent times is that a big part of what actually made them suddenly jump to the fore was the new units in the Breaker Boys and the Tank Busters. Yeah. And what people are gradually realising is you can use those in a whole bunch of detachments. And actually they add a sort of reliable shooting element to Warhorde if you want it. It makes a massive difference to how Warhorde plays because it's not as one-dimensional.
Yep.
Tactical, I think people will go back to and will still be pleasantly impressed with. We saw plenty of that in Home Nations teams this weekend just gone. So yeah, I think there's absolutely tons to be done with Orks, and they feel fun, exciting, dangerous, and quite a lot of the other top armies in the game don't like being clapped into by a whole bunch of Orks. So I think it's a great shout.
Wow.
Wow, indeed. Benjamin, I'm going to let you go before me because I'm obviously a very polite man.
That's very kind of you. I would go with Tau. This is wild and speculative, but I think Tau are bad.
I think
Tau are really struggling at the minute.
I'm glad you spotted that.
It's wild, right? You know,
I wish someone had picked up on it before. Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, I don't know. They just really struggle at the moment. They do. Doing enough everything. Everything shoots better than them. Or it's just got really good pressure that they hate. They don't want that. They don't want you touching them all over the shop. And yet we will continue to do so.
And they've suffered what amounts to competitive abandonment at this point, right? I don't think
they're not
seeing them out
really at this point. So I think for that reason, I think that they're going to have to go for a C tier.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable.
Some good players can probably get something out of them, but beyond that, I think that they're just not in a great spot at all.
No, I think that's completely reasonable. So Tau for C tier makes complete sense to me. It was very interesting doing a teams event this weekend where there was none of these old Lightboard Menace armies, right? I just don't think those kinds of approaches to the game are having a very good moment. I don't know whether that's just because stuff is chasing them down too fast. I don't know if it's because the way scoring has worked in Pariah Nexus, you just need to be mid-board and be involved in the game more than those kind of armies like to be. Whatever it is, it's just not a great time for Tau, which is a shame because they got the new detachment that looked quite spicy, and that doesn't seem to have brought any joy to them at the moment. So dare I say, is it time to break Tau? Oh no, I'm going to regret. Going to regret subscribing to that notion. Right. I saw that little Alex Fowler had arrived in the chat, so we're going to do Thousand Suns. I'm going to shove Thousand Suns firmly in D, and the reason they're going in D because nobody cares until the book comes out. Until the book comes out, nobody gives a shit about 1,000 Suns. It's not even because they're bad per se; it's because they have been amazing. Now they are merely fine. They too do not like all the pressure in the game right now. They get hounded down pretty aggressively by a whole bunch of stuff. They got nerfs in the last slate, despite not being in a place where they deserved any nerfs at all. And they are just one of those factions where I think people will just firmly have their eye off now until until it's time for the other stuff to come. So Alex Fowler says T-Suns are not a D tier army. I agree. But then he says absolutely playing them, which sounds a lot like a D tier army to me, doesn't it? Like if the thought of playing
them is play the army, then it's definitely.
If you don't want to play the army, it's D tier army, and that's where I think T-Suns are. Although I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Alex does when he gets a sexy new book in presumably the not too far future. And goodness, Tzeentch Demons as well. It's all going to go wrong, isn't it? You can already tell. Very excited to see what happens. He says some Chad took 20 Terminators 5-1 at a US event, Farmers League. That is the true calling, right? 20 Terminators that's the best. And if you're not playing send 10 Terminators and Magnus turn 1, why are you even playing 1,000 Suns? It's my personal take on it, but I'm not good at 1,000 Suns, so don't listen to me. Coldash says T-Suns are currently bin juice, but our time is soon. And they apparently have 120 Zangors list. I would love to see that. That sounds awesome. What else is going on in the chat? We've got some love for the CK list from Zeroed. Yeah, I mean, it looks very entertaining to play. It is not so entertaining to play against. It's hard work playing against it. Josh Calvin says Orks have to go in C tier. We got nerf tank busters are bad now. Yeah, lies. Josh is just trying to keep them alive. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Oh, and of course there's some shout out for Moth. Moth will probably appear in this at some point. We'll see how we go. Usually we do try and assess where things are at with Moth at some point. So let's take it back round to you, Chris. What's going on?
So I want to go with Harlequins. As the army I've played the most recently.
Yes, I see they do have their own army on here, which is fine.
They do have their army. Now, I am coming at this from a pure Harlequins approach. Obviously, you can take Harlequins with some actual good units. Namely,
this weekend.
Exactly. Yeah. So Liam took some Harlequins. He took the detachment. But he did, let's face it, have some tasty Aeldari in there as well. So, in my opinion, if you were to take pure pure Harlequins, you've got a bit of an issue in as much as you can take your 6 boats, you take your 6 guys, and you've got to flesh it with Sky Weavers and Ben Pierce's favourite, Void Weavers. Ben Pierce saw the light, he's seen the light now, and he's gone from not taking Void Weavers to taking Void Weavers, from taking them to not taking them, and now he's changed his results from 3 wins to 3 wins.
Nailed it.
Well done, Ben.
So good.
But no, I think in the pure form, if you're not touching the Aeldari, they just don't have any output. They've got some tricks and they can be annoying, but they just are very vulnerable to getting rushed down. Their combat is absolutely pathetic. And the output, if you have Void Weavers and Sky Weavers even, is not there. So I'm going to put Harlequins in D tier.
That's very reasonable. They can hang out with 1,000 Suns and have a little scrap over the Black Library down in D tier. That seems appropriate.
But if you were to add Aeldari on, they do go up the tiers. Or if you just are Liam VSL.
Yeah, so I mean that Liam VSL list where it's Warlock Conclaves plugged in has got me very interested because obviously he did some bonkers stuff with this weekend. Maybe that's the unit that actually plugs some of the gaps that Eldar have been struggling with at the moment. But also no one understood what it did, and he was certainly trading on surprise factor in a way that Liam often does as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see if that actually becomes something that other Elves players pick up, and run with. It'd be interesting. But as you say, Hardies on their own definitely need a bit of tweaking, a bit of love. Okay, wonderful. That takes it back around to Scrivo. Scrivo, I noticed that you've got your green background again. Is that a fortuitous sign of anything that might be about to happen?
Yeah, Death Guard.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, no, very good.
Sweet.
Very good. It's a slightly
So-
healthier green, that one, I think, than Death Guard would like. Anyway, take us through it.
So I think they've been like a sleeper hit for quite some time. So I think it was winter ITT when we were all there. Every team that was doing pretty damn good had them there, holding the line. It wasn't just reliant on the Terminators. There was Mortarion. There was a bit of everything. There was the poo grenade guy. Some rhinos sometimes. And I think they're only on the up, to be honest. Like, if the book builds on that and gives them more diversity, the character that they've previewed today's got toughness 6. So if they're getting toughness 6 across the board on their power armor dudes, that's going to be a real shift in what people bring. So to me, at the moment, I feel that they're probably still already up in A tier, but
I would completely
watch this space. I think they could sneak further if we're not careful.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think they have had. This is the only edition I can remember where Death Guard have not been a sort of running joke. Really, you know, they've been phenomenal for the last sort of
Since
half a year plus.
They kind of fixed their initial index that was a bit squiffy to start with, right?
Yeah,
So
I think they've
kind
just
of
landed on a
stripped
rule
and
set
started,
that really gives them their own feel, and they're awful. They're a slog to play into, and as Big Old Jim in the chat says, they're a nightmare in teams. Nobody wants them. They're a very solid, reliable army. They're one you have to have a plan for, and that sounds like an A-tier army to me.
Yeah, and I think they're above Orks because
they're
a little bit
interesting.
easier to pick up as well.
Yep, certainly. Less bodies, a little bit stodgier. Makes sense. Sounds good to me. Benjamin, that takes it back to you, sir.
Ooh, I don't know where to go. Let's go with Imperial Agents.
This will be a long one.
I know.
Okay.
And I was like, let's just keep...
Go on then, Ben. Tell us about Imperial Agents.
Well, thank you for the preemptive D there. Let's hear if the stats are to be believed, right? Consistent 60% win rate. That is well above the goal.
Much like yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, see, Tom, this is why you get paid. So I have absolutely no idea what agents do. I've still not seen them played as a mono faction. All their ally stuff is cool. I keep seeing that prop up everywhere. Yeah. So I've seen the rogue traders with navy breaches at the weekend. That's a really cool unit and great as an ally. I think still as a codex on its own, it is wrong. And I think, are we seeing immolators getting tagged into Chaos Knights armies now? Is that a thing?
We are. That's a very popular thing, like Canis, some armigers, and the immolators strip cover and just give you like a little scoring piece as well.
Yeah. So I think as allies, you could maybe go B tier. I think as a codex on its own, it needs to stay firmly in D tier.
I would agree. And you wonder whether it's really just been written as an allies book, really, in that sense.
Yeah. It's just
I think they probably should have marketed that a bit more explicitly. And I do, as I've said many times, I feel for the kid that walks into Games Workshop and thinks he's going to be an Imperial Agents player at the moment because he's just written off his whole life, which is the tough. Right, okay. I'm gonna go with Tyranids. Tyranids are a funny one. I think they have had a sort of golden era, and I think that era is sort of over. I think they got a lot of special attention for quite a long time. It felt like every slate they were working out new ways to take Nids up a level. And I think they sort of then arrived at a point where they're like, Nid's now fine. Let's leave it be and move on. And in that time, other things have gradually crept up into the game that give them all sorts of issues. And I think Invasion Fleet remains very powerful. I think there are very fun and interesting things you can do with the different detachments. My own little adventure with Vanguard Onslaught being one of them. But each of those directions has weaknesses and issues and challenges. And so I would say they are probably, for me, the ultimate B-tier army at the moment. They are just bang down the middle. They are very balanced. They can win games. They can do well at events. But I think the juice and the excitement has faded away for them a little bit. in recent times, and I think potentially they're one you look at and go, maybe something new and interesting and exciting happening for them would be good. Like, I don't know, maybe give that Ravenous kill team some bonkers rules or something to kind of shake them up a bit. That'd be quite fun to see. But there's not as much excitement coming out of the Tyranids camp as there had been in recent times. So I'd slap them firmly in B. They can cuddle up between World Eaters and Grey Knights. Actually, to be honest, I think they're probably just ahead of those two by virtue of having tons of stuff and a stat check in the locker if they need it. But they are a firm B tier army for me. Alrighty, we're going to take it back round. Just a reminder, if you want a faction shouted out, you haven't seen it done already, you can super chat and we'll immediately read it out for you right now. Because that actually worked, I'm now obliged to try and do it again. Chris, what would you like to talk about next, son?
All right, an army that is vicious in the right hands, just not my own. Custodes. Custodes have had many highs the end over the last few editions. 8th, 9th, they had moments, 10th, where they've been really good. And at the moment, it seems to be that they are in a pretty good place. They're pretty much, whenever you see like Meta Monday, it's like they're like the most played faction, right? Like they are super popular at the moment, which inevitably brings their win rate down slightly than from what it actually is, because obviously not all players are created equal. But what you are seeing is in the right hand, they are able to do really well. They've got the added benefit that sometimes you just roll 4-ups and you win because you just rolled 4-ups, and that is a win path which not every army has, right? And I think they're sitting in a pretty nice spot at the moment. I think they're A tier. I think in the right hands, they're or on the right terrain, they're at the topper end of A tier. I think if you're playing them on something like UKTC, you can't lean into the all combat builds. You need to grab tanks, pew, which is the only reason I lost to you, Tom. The only reason.
Completely. The honest answer is if you have 2 Caladius, my matrix for that drops right down the bin.
Just because you have to hide rather than be terrified of mine.
I can't just put a whole bunch of tanks out and just shoot you repeatedly for 5 turns, which is what I did.
And I know people have been, I think it's Ashley Brown's been talking about running just like a load of shooting and just put an insane amount of shots out there with obviously full rerolls to wound. It does add up, +1 to wound, it does add up. I think there probably is a real world application there if you're really leaning into those squads. Like, got to keep them 6 inches apart. I think that's rough. But yeah, I'm going to put them in A tier. It does depend on your terrain, I think, depending on their strength. And it affects this building and that sort of thing. But I think they're in a good place.
Yeah, I think they're solid. I think we may not see the best of them in the UK because UKTC I just don't think is their natural hunting ground. I think Solar Spearhead's probably better on that than Lions, and obviously Lions is what players are excited about. And Lions is awesome. I think that's a really cool detachment. I enjoy playing against it. I do genuinely feel like they've written cool Custodes rules there that don't just feel mind-numbing to play against. It's not just turning off everything you do. It's actually making their stuff really exciting and feel very epic on the tabletop. I was very impressed watching them played by Alex and Louis at Home Nation Singles. And what was very clear is on more dense boards where you're very patient, suddenly the power of that stat-checky nature of the infantry goes up a whole level because you're only going to get 1 or 2 turns to actually deal with it if it's played well and carefully and cautiously. And I really like Alex got wonderful play out of a bike squad with the captain in Lions as well. That is a very fun unit if people haven't tried that. Again, I'm not sure it's UKTC friendly, perhaps not. But being able to do your fight, run away, spend a CP, unlock permanently doing that gives them just a little bit of non-interactivity, which they desperately need, because otherwise trading down is always a bit of a risk for them, right?
It creates trade pieces, doesn't it?
Completely. And that's ultimately, I think that's why the new detachment is so clever. It's a whole bunch of ways that let you actually not quite run out of juice too soon into armies.
Get back up and all that sort of thing.
Pushing the give and go. I don't think it's easy to play them well. And Custodes players will know that I never say that lightly for their army, so you can enjoy that one whilst I'm handing it out. All right, John D. I hope that's John Drakely, my old Drukhari pal from over in Leighton Buzzard Way. Talk to me about Drukhari. You know what, John? You know what? This week, me and Rob Kimpton started chatting in the DM. And we only do that if we smell something. Drukhari positive, right? That's the only time for something like, oh, is it time again? I think Drukhari are a lot better than popular perception and their win rate would have you believe. I think the faction has suffered competitive abandonment because I think they didn't get a great index. They got some love with some new detachments, which have been good fun, but actually, most Drukhari vets have played that a ton now by this point in the edition, and are sort of like, well, we'll wait and see what the new rules bring. The people I know who've persisted with it are still performing very consistently and doing very well with it. I think they are very good into a certain set of things, and then they don't like another set of things, which probably puts them more towards B than anywhere else, because I think they do, if you look at the top of the game, they don't love everything in it, but also if you look at the top of the game, actually, the list of things in there they do like is perhaps a little longer now than it was a little while ago. So I'm optimistic for Drukhari. I think I'd put them in high B, maybe just behind Nids, because I think Nids can always just trade on having a shit ton of stuff and Shadows in the Warp in their locker. But I think it will be very interesting as a lot of Chaos Space Marine bodies enter our meta in the next few months, whether Drukhari suddenly start coming back into it, because they love Marine bodies. They always have.
Yeah.
They love going fast and hitting things, and they are very up for a pressure melee scrap because they have a lot of tools for dealing with that. Does that mean it'll be in their favour? I wouldn't say so. But I think a very good Drukhari player will have a lot to offer, actually, in the face of lots of pressure melee Space Marines of the spiky variety going forward. So let's see if that proves true, or if the bottom just falls out of them entirely. But yeah, my Drukhari head says it's not the worst time to play them at all. I think with lots of Marines coming, maybe it's going to be happy hunting. Maybe it's time for me to finally get the Void Raven Bomber back out. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll become that guy. Two of them. Obviously two of them. It's the only way. So watch this space on Drukhari. Maybe we'll see some interesting things happening quite soon. I can't remember whose go it actually was. My head says John.
Mine.
John?
It's
You've got a blue background, John. What does that tell us?
It tells me. No, that's not a real army. Eldari. So craft one Eldari.
Okay, let's hear it. Chris is livid.
Up until this weekend, I hadn't played them outside of playing one game into the Harlequins detachment, which was guff. It wasn't much of a game, unfortunately.
Who played that?
That was poor Sam, who then pivoted back to Custodes and took out an RTT this weekend.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
Lesson is play what you know best.
Yeah.
I played into Aspect Host on the weekend, so I actually saw their toolkit firsthand properly now. They've got a lot of cool tricks, and it's very solid and a very great depth of units. And I think they're at the bottom of A, personally.
Yeah,
I think they are. They're up
right
there, but they have some inherent weaknesses that the T3 bodies, that once they've kind of sprung their trap, if they're slightly out of position, they can just get blown over by most things. Yeah. So it requires a very good pilot.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Easy.
Maybe we invite Chris to comment, seeing as he does
love
Eldar.
What the fuck's your Have you heard of Inari? I think if you just take them at their highest level, they're obviously Inari played really well, is very, very strong, and is causing a lot of complaints from a lot of people. So therefore, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. Eldar players are always very quick to talk down Eldar, and everyone else is very quick to talk up how good they are. You hear Vic and Nick Nanavati, who's also been playing Inari, talk about it, and it's like, Nick's like, man, this army's actually really hard to play. Vic is, this army's really hard to play. That's because they're playing into like the top level players who have learned the Inari tricks and just basically don't ever shoot them and kind of just run at them and negate a lot of their rules. And if you don't get to play your rules as Inari, you're just playing weaker Eldar. And then I think Inari is something like that army that at the middle to upper middle tables can create just so many problems, or you're an incredible player and able to just snooker your opponent. Basically, whatever you do, you kill, you shoot me, I get to do things that'll screw you over. You don't shoot me. I think that's the next level we're going to see from Inari if they don't get nerfed, is learning to either list build or play in such a way that, you're not going to shoot me, well, you're still screwed. I think that's kind of like
I agree.
the next level. But you've still got, obviously Aspectos is pretty strong. I still
love it,
think
yeah.
there's excellent juice in Seer Council. Windrider is really great in teams and stuff. So yeah, I think they're in a really good place. I would probably put them a bit higher than bottom of A. But we'll let Scrivo
Yeah.
comments.
I was
think
trying
it's
to
an
forget
interesting one.
Ynnari. I almost feel
Yeah,
like
I think Ynnari. Yeah, Ynnari is undeniably. I think on baseline, it's the most powerful rule set in the game right now. Right, in terms of what the rules themselves do, they are rules that depend on your opponent triggering them to a large extent, which does limit their power to if the opponent is very competent and capable, but they're still phenomenally powerful and they force the opponent to play in different ways. I think Eldar probably have the envious position of being the single most teched for and prepped for army in the game at this moment in time, which might slightly limit their power, but it's worth saying they are still winning and doing well despite being the thing with the biggest target on its back. I think in the game in the current meta, which tells you how powerful this is. Right, everyone is trying to manage it, deal with it, think up solutions to it. It's still performing very well. So I think it is a very strong army. I think, as you say, John, if we're thinking about it beyond just Ynnari itself, I think the other detachments have all had moments, but none of them have yet demonstrated themselves as a sort of a complete world-beating, unstoppable force. So a lot of it's going to hinge on what happens with Ynnari, I think. Benjamin, your pick, mate.
Hello. I'm going to go with Guard.
Oh, sexy.
In the bin, trash.
Awful.
Nice.
You're welcome, Josh.
Guard.
In the hands of Josh.
I mean,
don't be mean.
Literally no reason for that, Josh. I apologise.
Yes,
Why does Josh get an apology?
Josh catching strays. Outrageous.
He is a stray, that's why.
Oh dear. So Guard are interesting. So I think they've got a lot of play in that new book. And I still don't think it's been fully explored yet. We are still dealing with the post Bridgehead nerf. And I think a lot of players are now trying to look at all the different detachments and all the different combinations in those. So it sits quite strong. They've got a good pool of units. I think we could maybe let Bulgrin come down a little bit now. Just a little bit now. They can't get orders.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Just a smidge, Tom. Just a little bit. Come on, let them get some punch back in there.
I don't know why I loved killing Bulgrin. I would love them to come back.
Bulgrin are great. Let's just kill them more. But I think they still require a bit of skill. They're certainly not the Bridgehead. You can just take 30 or 50 scions, however many it was, and just table your opponent in 2 turns. I think we could put them top of B. I think that would be. I think on the averages, I think that'd be very reasonable. Yeah. This is an army that wins a lot, right? Like it wins a lot. It has been a very consistent competitive innovations before, but the whole time I've been writing, there's been some version of Guard turning up every single week for the whole time I played. But at the same time, its over-relying macro data, as Fireside Podcast in the chat are pointing out, is low. It is not good on a sort of global scale, the overall win rate. But yeah, I mean they are strong.
They did just win a super major.
They did win a super major.
I would say that the combined arms list is very strong. I guess we all, as
Hammer's
you said,
strong.
Hammer as well. As you said before, it's very much lots of people play it, so its win percentage is lower than what it is, and it's always going to be like there's going to be a strong build, which in the right hands is incredibly powerful.
I agree.
It's just what variant of Guard are we looking at in the tier list? I guess.
Yeah. Someone's asking Fireside Podcast if it's Vic or Dave talking, and they've replied, "It's Vic. Guard could do with a buff." So I'll let you guys figure out for yourselves who you think it is we're talking with in the chat there.
Hello, Dave.
Yeah, that's a funny one. That is a funny one. Yeah, they're good. They're definitely good. They got a ton of stuff. They're performing well. A lot of Guard players are very much enjoying the army right now. It's an interesting one. I don't think it's as straightforward to play as it was. So I'll give you that one, Ben.
No, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's not very much put it on the board, shoot your opponent, done.
Isn't it just put 20 Deathcore Krieg out and then put another 20 out and just like, haha.
Well, I mean, as we found out, they do die really, really easily
They do.
Okay.
when they are sat in the wrong position.
Nah.
And
So
you bomb them with your bomber.
yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
This is the way.
Completely fair. Look at this fat A tier we got going on. Guard not invited though. Sorry, Dave.
No guard. Yeah. Aeldari at the bottom. Nailed it.
Right. What we're gonna do
I'm
next?
just always right though.
I'm gonna go. I might go with Admech actually. Admech we're gonna put in. Oh goodness, I think it's top of C for me because it is good. It can win games. There are incredible Admech teams lists that people really hate going second against. But again, no one I know has enjoyed playing Admech.
No.
And it's just grim. Ed Watts, I think it broke him permanently. I think that, Ed has been basically in recovery since playing Admech at South Coast.
He tried to play Librarius after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did. And it's just, it's a fun... Army's in a funny place. As a team's asset, it's great. In singles, it had two good admin players went on good runs at South Coast. It can put up runs. It's just very yucky as a force right now, and it's a very joyless, blocky, die on the line kind of way of playing. I think you can do some fun things with Halo Screed, but they're not the strongest ways to play Admech, and I think in general most players have sort of abandoned them really. Aiden says he's sat building some lovely kill team Krieg chaps. Yeah, I mean the Krieg bricks in
Lovely models.
In Guard are good, and Guard also just have the benefit of just having the most incredible range of models right now. They have been so well served over the last edition or two. It's just absolutely bananas how beautiful they are. It's just a long, expensive undertaking.
Just squint when you look at the Catachans, right?
Yeah, surely they're next for an update, right? It's got to happen at some point. Alrighty, I'm going to bop it back round to you, Chris.
I'm going to go with my Greater Greatness army, Blood Angels.
This I'm
Damn, I
curious
didn't
about.
steal off of him. Shit.
I'm very excited about this. Yeah, screw you, screw it.
Love you, boss.
Obviously, they were doing rather well. They got a little bit of a nerf because they were doing a bit too well. I think they're genuinely fascinating. You look at when Mordaka was, the menace. You've got people like Manny who are taking Blood Angels and Josh taking Blood Angels because they believe that is the counter. Some of the best players and list builders, and they think that army is an army that can counter it. You then take Josh Roberts, who, he just wins everything he plays these days anyway. But for now, his chosen army of choice is Blood Angels.
Yeah.
So you look at those things and you think, wow, they must be really good. Argument against that, how many actual Blood Angels units are they taking?
Not tons.
Any? No. They're basically just taking a Rage Field Captain, and that's it. It's just, they're not taking...
Are we dealing with a case that a detachment is strong but a faction is not, Chris?
I think we might be, because...
Goodness gracious, what a talking point.
Josh has got, bricks of jump pack, intercessors, assault marine, everyone could take those. Every marine can take those.
Why wouldn't you take the Death Company versions?
So it's... Yeah, I think we're in this weird dynamic where Blood Angels, the rules are very strong and they have the potential to be A tier. But the army, the models, the actual specific things to the codex are not being taken. So therefore, is it not good? It's a hard one to balance. So I would put it at the top of B tier. Because I think it's got a high ceiling, but the fact that it's not actual Blood Angels units going there is the thing that brings it down. Yeah,
it's a sad state of affairs in that sense, and also it's not been. It is just LAG, right? It's that we've not seen anything done. There's a couple of mad lads on Inheritors.
People talk about it, and obviously Jack Harpster did well with Angelic a while ago, and it is one of those things where Blood Angel players like to talk about how it gives you lots of options. Jordan from Vanguard, he's been doing well with Angelic at the moment, and he's enjoying it. Yeah. And he says it just gives you options into all the games, and it gives you that toolkit. That's what that detachment does, whereas lag just gives you the ability to go and punch something in the face really hard.
100%. Simon Harris asks, is Deathwatch on the list? Yes, it absolutely is. Deathwatch are the red gunny-looking montage next
That's
to the
the
GSC.
artwork from when they had a codex.
Yeah,
Last
absolutely.
edition.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Scrivo. What would you like to do now?
So I'm going to flip it on its head to do to discuss the opposite points to what Chris just did, but with Dark Angels.
Okay.
They're an army where the data sheets are the strength of the army, but the
This is beautiful
detachments
commentary, John.
are
This is
basically non-existent. Like, they exist, really,
Profound.
in a book,
Profound.
on a shelf that you forget about, and you just play Space Marine detachments instead. But because your data sheets are so good, you're playing Dark Angels, not whatever
John
other flavor,
Scones,
right?
this is pure punditry. This is match of the day shit. I'm loving this. This is wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, where does that leave them at the moment?
I feel it
Near the
puts
top
them
of B tier.
It's right in the middle of the top half, so I think they're just below Blood Angels in as much as the raw power of the units are okay, but they're not quite smashing the same level as the Blood Angel stuff can.
They seem to have been passed over, and that's there's always one Marine faction the Marines players are a bit excited about.
Yeah.
If it's Blood Angels, then it's not you, right?
And if you're not doing Blood Angels, you're finding people, especially in a teams format, they're probably taking Ultramarines, Gladius, or Ironstorm. It's just like the Dark Angel pressure lists aren't there for the teams format either, so it feels like they're kind of slightly out of favour.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But so I think they're just below Blood Angels personally, because I think
that's fair.
especially when you take into consideration that they're 8 detachments that they've got that are specific for them, they don't use.
Yeah,
which is just
completely
a
reasonable.
waste. But
yeah, absolutely.
never mind. What was next edition?
Yeah, for sure. All right, handing it over to you, Benjamin. What's popping?
Okay, let's do it. I'm going to go for an S tier army here.
I knew it.
You ask, Ben, what possibly could be the S tier army here? And you ask, can one unit make an army S tier? And I respond in Winged Demon Princes for Emperor's Children. Let's go!
They are okay. We're doing it. Let's talk about Emperor's Children then, Ben, because you have been dabbling in this.
Yes, so I've been building lots of Emperor's Children. I've painted some, and I've played 2 games with Emperor's Children. And I'm currently at 50% win rate with Emperor's Children. So please don't take anything I say here as any sort of reasonable knowledge about this army. What I can say is it's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed the 2 games I've played with them so far, and I can absolutely see how in the right hands you could completely dick someone down immediately. You know, if you've got that technical mindset for. Sometimes you look at an army and go, "Oh, advance and charge everywhere, cool. I'm just going to run at you." That's not going to work. But I think if you've got that technical player skill to make real use of that, the army rule there with the right units, you are going to have a great time. Particularly with the current points costs for a lot of things. Obviously, they're not the confirmed final releases yet of points, but they get a lot of stuff.
They do.
Goes a long way.
They do.
Some of these lists out there are looking at 3 Winged Demon Princes already. And
one of which gets back up.
Yeah. So 4 Winged Demon Princes.
Indeed.
It's powerful, strong pressure melee with good shooting that goes fast and becomes sustained and lethal and gets silly very, very quickly.
It just snowballs. Games against Emperor's Children just snowball. You think you're getting a foothold in the game, and you think you're starting to clean up some of the guys. They are fragile. You do kill a bunch of stuff when you play against them. In some ways, it reminds me of 9th edition Drukhari, where you're like, I'm killing stuff, I'm getting back in it. You know? But there's just always another wave, and there's always another character that hits incredibly hard, following up on what you just cleared. And I'd be very interested to see how they get on once they hit the UKTC shores. I think ITT will be a big event for them, but I will be very surprised if we don't see a ton of Emperor's Children in the team's rosters for ITT. It is a momentum army in a momentum sort of pack and meta, and it does it better than everybody else in that sense. I will be fascinated to see what the counters people have cooked up are, and what sorts of counterplays people are managing to find, because I'm sure they do exist. But goodness gracious, it's terrifying.
Yanari beats it, according to Vic.
Oh, there you go. Well, so that's reassuring. As long as Yanari can beat it,
that's all
then
good.
That will keep the elves in the S tier. Be fine. Wonderful. I'm going to go with an army that pleasantly impressed me over the weekend, which is Necrons.
Nice.
Necrons, that book just always finds another way. Doesn't matter what you do to it, there's always something else in it. At the moment, it's lots of warriors in Awakened Dynasty, and that is a horrific list to play against if you've not played against it. I think Awakened Dynasty isn't new, it's been around forever, but there's a very cool build in there. I think this book just keeps plugging away. I think it always finds another stat check. I think as lethality creeps down in the game, lists like Chaos Knights or IK or Necrons that can pose certain kinds of stat check questions grow up in power. And I think their ability to just completely no-sell certain kinds of damage puts them in a very powerful spot. I actually feel like Necrons are probably a middle of A-tier army play well at the moment. I think they're very strong. I think it's just, as always with them, it's just taken a few months for people to find and carve out the next build and work out the next direction for them. And as Dan Richards in the chat alludes to, the Orrekin Warrior brick is just very effective. 20 bodies, 4 up invuln, 2-3 wound crypto thralls. And if you don't do it in one, it's going to come back and basically regrow almost to full again. It's a real meta question. It's another thing I expect us to see an awful lot more of. So I think I'd put Necrons very slap bang in the middle of A. I think they're in a very, very strong spot with that Awakened Dynasty build. Sam says, played versus that this weekend game was over turn 1. Well, who for, Sam? Did you smash it or did it smash you? Who is in charge of the old Necrons? Yeah, chuck him. I'll put them above Chaos Knights, mate. I think they're better than Chaos Knights.
They've got more than one way to play, right?
They do. Yeah, that's the thing. This is just the latest Russian doll to pop up, right? There'll always be another thing with that book because it just keeps giving. May not be the most exciting Warhammer Necrons players I've ever had, but it does just keep coming. There's always a new way. And Awakened Dynasty having just it was the unit I was impressed with. I played against Danny Everson on it, and it's the little Scorpet destroyer units where the Lord, even when you kill the unit, the Lord's just going to get back up and hit you again anyway. Like it's very good at just fucking with your plans. Kodos says people focus on the warriors, but it's the reanimator and the strat that need the nerf. Maybe, I don't know if Necrons need a nerf. To be honest, I think it's an effective list. It asks certain kinds of questions. Like almost every Necron build before, there'll be something else. Sam says World Eaters Search and Destroy going first. Who do you think won? Oh yeah, that sounds like the Necron spanked you, Sam. So sorry about that. My commiserations. All right, okay. That takes it back to Chris, I believe.
Well, I played against Sisters of Battle the other day in my vain attempt at trying to be ready for ITT. I managed to get a Ynnari rep in, and it was a really interesting game because it was very much kind of like talk it through. And from the Ynnari perspective, it was obviously he was like, "Oh, yeah, your 4 units for shooting this time. It'll go really well." And after like a 5-minute conversation, he was like, "I think I'm just not going to shoot any of the units." And I was like, "Yeah, so it probably is the right approach there." But from a sister's perspective, when we were talking through the rules, there's actually quite a lot of similarities. There's a lot of stratagems which Ynnari have, and that I played into the Hallowed Martyrs. They had the same sort of vibe, and then you've got all these like get back ups and 2-up invuln like for a phase stuff, and it was interesting. You just don't really get much stuff.
No.
I think, and you can obviously they've got a great set of rules. They're just limited by not having much stuff at the moment.
Yes.
So I think they've definitely got a place in like potentially in like teams and that sort of thing as that kind of that blunting role, because they can just be really annoying. They've got that added advantage that no one knows what the detachments do. Like we know when people are rolling advances and blasting us. We know when that happened, but these days it's not that. But there are a lot of tricks that I think especially with like this Hallowed Martyrs detachment, which are really interesting. And so I'm going to put them I'm going to put them in C tier. But I think I don't think they're as bad. They were not as bad as I was expecting them to be.
No, I think it's a slightly different. It's almost the inverse of AdMech, isn't it? Where the actual rules are a lot of fun. You can do very fun things with sisters. It's just that they don't actually have the sort of the bodies on the table to get it done.
I was looking at Tom's list. I was like, "Where's your stuff, Tom?"
Yeah.
But you still
Once
do.
you remember how fragile the stuff they have is, and you're like, yeah.
And the problem is, if they change those points too aggressively, it becomes a completely different problem again. It's such a silly lever that they need to be playing with.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That takes it back to you, Mr. Scrivens. What are you thinking?
I'm going to go with the other scary thing that I think sometimes doesn't get appreciated in Space Wolves. They've got a real good place at the moment that their detachment actually plays like Space Wolves should.
It does. Yeah, 100% does.
You've got lots of epic heroes sticking around, being stodgy. It feels like the embers of, like, this might not be a playstyle we'll see when their book finally arrives, but at the moment, they are a real problem for a lot of my armies, and I still think we don't see them as often as I think I'd like to, but I still think that they are really quite good. I think they are... I don't think they're as competitive as Blood Angels at the moment, but in the right hands...
Yeah, it's not. It's just not as fast. It's not as fast. Ultimately, it has basically the same. It's got basically the same vibe, which is you take units that cost nothing and kill tanks with them.
Yeah,
it's just that they're slower and you have.
It's slower and survives better. So it's kind of somewhere in between the two of the other Angels. So I feel like maybe it sits somewhere there, maybe a little bit higher. I don't know. It just feels like they're kind of, we don't see them that often, but when we do, they're being piloted by some madman like Paul James that just ruins everyone's fun, which is just, I like to see, because there was a time where at the beginning of the edition, I just didn't see them because it was just that whole sadness of all my weapons are all a bit sad trombone.
Yeah. And Wolf DL does pop up sometimes as well, because that is still obnoxious. People still don't like Wolf.
And when it catches you good still, right? So
yeah, damn right. Damn right.
Yeah.
All right. Going to bop it over to you, Benjamin. What we're thinking?
Let's go for Imperial Knights.
Ooh.
Beautiful. What we're thinking?
I still don't think they're as good as Chaos Knights. So
that's interesting. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I think it's still very much Canis Rex and as many of the other little knights you can put in, and then probably some agents in there as well, just to fluff out the list a little bit, because it's boring, and get you some other stuff in there. So I think it's always telling if an army is having to ally in things to do other things. But Chaos Knights.
Describing your army as well.
Why? So yeah, I mean, I think again, one of these, I think in a good player's hands, I think they can do really well. I think the meta's fairly good for them, but again, just not as good as 13 War Dogs. So I would put them in B tier.
I think that's fair.
Now, whereabouts do I think they're better than Guard and Blood Angels? No.
Absolutely not. No.
I think we're probably about right there between Tyranids and
yeah, that looks about right.
I think that looks about spot on, to be fair.
I think that's very fair. It's definitely like as you say, they coast through on skew at the moment. There's a lot of stuff that just isn't ready to deal with them, and like the lists are deceptively stodgy and annoying. They get a lot out of having agents allies.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And them and CK, it's just time for them to get books really, and we can see what the vision for them is for this edition. I think they just need a bit of love in that sense. All right.
Not far out now either. That's the summer, right? Roughly.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too long. We're on a mission to leave a shit ton of stuff that I play to the end, so that's
We've
good.
done a really good job there, haven't we? Yeah.
Gustavo Souza says, "God, B feels right." Nice little.
Just hoovered up Chris's faction.
Nice little pat. Nice little self pat. We love that. I'm going to go with the faction I play. I'm going to go with Genestealer Cults. So Genestealer Cults are in an interesting spot. The glory days are over, right? There was a moment there where it all got really out of hand and we were doing horrific things. It is still a very powerful army. It skews into certain kinds of archetypes now, all of which are very good at what they do, whether it's Brood Surge, Host, Outlander, or Final Day, as I was testing. You can build a GSC list that is incredibly good at a set of things. None of them are free of weaknesses. None of them are free of counterplays. None of them are free of difficult matchups now. And that, of course, is where you want a book to be. They have been getting run out of town a bit more now that it's a melee pressure game and a lot of speedy stuff coming into play with them. I think there's some combat armies that just play them off the park a little bit, especially if you're doing combat GSC. And I think it takes proper faction specialists to get the absolute most out of GSC now. So for me, that probably puts them in the B tier. I think probably knocking around. If we're saying Guard is B tier, I think that's probably not an unreasonable comparison. Where it's like I think in very good hands, they are very, very good as Guard are. I don't know where they relate to Blood Angels, to be honest. I think for your average player, they're not going to be as good as Blood Angels. There's a lot more people having fun with Blood Angels than GSC right now. But this is just an army that you can still see taking out huge events because it just still has that potential when it's played well. But I think it just has to duck and weave a little bit in terms of what it plays to get there. How it's going to get on with all the Chaos factions as they arrive, I'll be really interested to see because that's a lot of rhinos with very speedy men in them. GSC doesn't always love that, so it's going to be interesting to see how they get on with it. John Black says, surely GSC are one of the few powerful armies that just aren't fun to play for most players. I dispute that. I think GSC are a hoot to play. A great time. Just technically challenging to play. But I think their strongest builds are perhaps not as fun to play. So Host of Ascension with 90 neophytes or whatever it is, that is not particularly fun to play. And so that probably will keep it out a little bit. It is very powerful, but the secret is always just run for the corners, and they don't like it when you do that. And there's quite a lot of armies that were already planning on running for the corners anyway in the game right now, and that makes life a little bit difficult for them. So, be interesting to see how they get on over the next few months. I think. Alrighty, that takes it back to you, Christopher. Let's go.
Oh, what a wonderful array of options we have. CSM are pretty good, aren't they?
They are pretty good, Chris.
They've been doing pretty well. You've got Creations of Bile, which has been putting up some good numbers. We've got the return of various forms of CSM. Rumour has it that they're about to get into some nice, tasty noise marines as
makes life pretty sexy for them, doesn't it?
So all of a sudden, in a shocking turn of events, CSM are now an army that we are all going to be worried about again across the tables. So very, very exciting times, I think, because everyone's got an EC box. So, however, who knows how many actual EC armies are going to be out there compared to the actual ones that people own like 600 points of, right? But then you're going to see all those noise marines getting worked in. You're going to see people trying to think about how can they use these new options to improve and make these existing CSM lists really strong and what detachments they best work in and that. So it's going to give CSM a bit of a lease of life there, which I think is really interesting. And obviously we've got Bile, who are pretty tasty at the moment anyway. So I'm going to put them in A tier, and I'll put them.
I think so.
I feel a bit like Necrons, don't they? It's just it's the book that keeps on giving, right?
I completely agree. Yeah, I think it's
not like Lords.
It's a powerful rule set. I think there's certain armies growing into the game now which are sort of stat checky, and CSM are always one of those armies that I see your stat check and I raise you gratuitous amounts of damage. So I think that's something that they quite enjoy. And if ultimately we're looking at EC and going, that's powerful because it's a bunch of stagey, dickheady combat units in Rhinos, it's like, well, CSM can absolutely play that game and they can have noise marines. So they're definitely going to be able to do, at the very least, a good impression of that, right? And I think they've just been in a respecking mode. I don't think the gunline CSM days, I think, are a little bit over. I don't think just tons of tanks is the way. But then they realise that actually they just have a million other good data sheets that play combat infantry staginess instead, and they'll play that way. Harley's arrived, and he says Guard in B is a disgrace. I do agree, Harley. I think if we're playing the averages, I think Guard in B feels about right. But I think at the top,
not everyone's as good as you, Harley.
Exactly, that's it. Harley obviously represents the 1% of Guard players.
Yeah, tax avoidance Guard players.
Tax avoidance Guard players. Jesus Christ. Oh, my Lord. So that was Chris's pick, which means it's now John's pick. John, what are you picking?
So I'm going to go with not a real army, and I'm going to go with Deathwatch.
Ooh, what do you think of Deathwatch?
So I think it's really cute that they've got their old rules back, but it's not that exciting.
Okay.
There's much more exciting ways to play Marines. I've seen people having some joy with it, but it is it's like Imperial Agents level engagement with it, because people have already gone, the army's gone, they've sold off their army. It feels like this is them saying you get to play them for the end of the edition, but they're not a real army. So I just don't really feel like they're really up there. Like, it's that weird thing of like, even if the rules are quite fun and some points drops help them a little bit, are people going to go to them? I'm not sure. I'm sure that there's probably at the same time there'll be other marine bodies that people will enjoy playing more. So I have a funny feeling, like, to me, they feel like they're more of kind of like bottom of C. I don't think they're quite D, but I just don't. I don't enjoy it as a faction at the moment.
Okay. And that feels like that's more of an assessment based on the fact that they're probably going to disappear than the fact that they're not good, right? But then demons in A probably aren't going to stick with us forever by the look of it, and yet we're agreeing that they're awesome.
But they're really
so you've angered Simon Harris.
Yeah,
he's furious.
They're doing all right at the moment. The people are picking them for like.
I think.
Right?
I just stopped hearing it.
I think they do some stuff. They do have some uppy downy blast your face off action.
That's a good point, Simon Harris. He said Astartes 2 is based on Deathwatch. So they do this where they kill things in the game, but then they don't kill them in the lore. So maybe we'll see a recalibration. Maybe Imperial Agents will become more of their home, but with actually more to it, like actual models.
Maybe. All right then, John. Shall we get up the pot where we put them?
So you're saying people are actually doing all right with them? So my emotional response isn't there. Bomber B then.
All right, chuck them in there. That's fine. That's okay.
Where everyone lives, right?
That's fine. They've not been pulling up trees, but they definitely function, and they definitely do things people don't like. 100%.
Never roll.
I would have been nicer if people had thrown money at me to say about them.
Dan Richards, to answer your question, the CSM list at home, some of them were shooty. That's not the same as like gunline tanky though. This isn't here's 3 Vindicators and 3 Predators, and this is we're talking Noise Marines take up a shooting role without being a clunky, hard to move around vehicle type threat. So it means that your more MSU Renegade Raiders type list suddenly goes up a level again. So I think that was one of the ones we saw. But then Bile, I think, is still the favoured team's option, just because Bile is very powerful and very, very good. But I think a whole bunch of the detachments will get a new lease of life when you just take 2 or 3 Noise Marine squads in, and that's the reality of it. Like Vets of the Long War likes them, Packbound likes them, Dread Talons, Night Lords detachment loves them. You know, Night Lords definitely going up a level with Noise Marines, which is obviously very important. And Chaos Cults is actually pretty popular for CSM as well, but I don't think you need Noise Marines in that one. Simon Harris says Deathwatch is smashing. That's awesome. Good to hear. Benjamin, pick wisely.
I'm going to go with Votann, I think.
Nice.
About Votann. I'll go with Marines. I'll leave Votann for you, Tom.
Good lad. Thank you very much. God knows I suffered enough. Yeah.
Marines.
Marines, indeed.
It's so wide, isn't it? Like where.
That's why none of us have picked it.
I was like,
I can't nail that down. Like I don't it's just so big. It's huge. But some builds.
Thanks,
thanks. Yeah, I was just. Send me back to the war, please.
This is what you get for actually being on the show for the entire time.
Oh my gosh!
I think you could put Marines bottom of A.
Yeah, I think you legitimately could. Yeah.
I think that's just because there's so much variety in there. There's a lot you can do with that book, and some of it is wrong, and some of it is probably you should do it. You know,
I think if we're ranking ultimately, if we look at Space Wars and Dark Angels, as we've established, like most of why we've even got them in B is actually the Space Marine book, not them.
Yeah.
Blood Angels, most of the reason they're in B is the Space Marines units, but their detachments help. And then there's a shit ton you can do without even those things, right? I think there's absolutely so again writing up innovations. You've got Raven Guard type lists have done well. You've got I saw a guy running a Mad Lad he almost won an event with 20 Assault Terminators with Lysander in Imperial Fists. Like you can do all sorts of absolutely bananas things with that book since they've done all the buffs that they had recently. And then Ultramarines are still just Ultramarinesing. That's still a thing. Like, crazy. Very, very good. Votann. Oh, Dan Richard says that was me with Lysander. Oh, Dan, that's awesome.
Oh, legend.
I gave you a very good write-up, but since you're here, Dan,
I have a question.
don't say your list is shit. That just flags you up as someone that's good at the game. I think I wrote it on your Goonhammer. I think I wrote it on your Goonhammer review. If you care enough to write that your list isn't very good in the title, then that's a surefire sign that you're very good at this and think too much about it already. I think I advised people in the Goonhammer review about that. But I loved your list. Your list was absolutely fantastic. It was so clever. Because it was like you could have like double minus to wounds Assault Terminator bricks. Because Lysander gives it to 1. It was in Stormlance, so you can give it to the other brick. So you're shoving 20 for wound, 4 up in run Terminators that are -1 to wound at people. And they're also OC2 because Lysander makes them OC2.
Yes.
And that's a sad day. And they've got a reactive move, advance and charge, get Stormlance. Oh, sexy. Very sexy list indeed. And I think that's what Marines are, is that there's actually just a well of stuff people haven't even done yet. I mean, to be fair, some of our other top armies, I think Eldar especially, are like that. But we've not even seen what people will actually find when they start digging outside Ynnari. And yes, I say Dan's final was against Triple Doomsday Arc, which is literally exactly what you don't want when you've got... No, yeah, I say I wrote it up. I wrote that showdown up, Dan. It was perfect, unfortunately, for just pulling you apart because it's just damage 4 guns that don't care about -1 to wound with blast. It's just like, oh no, such a sad end for the Terminators, but there we are. Right, Votann, they're legit. They keep popping up. They are the stat check that kills other stat checks. That's just a good thing to be in the game. The rules aren't terribly exciting. I think Greg, my teammate, has been doing some cool things with Hearthguard. In Hearthband, I think there's more to be done here and more with that detachment than originally met the eye. They're just solid. They don't care what terrain they're on. They're great in teams because they're very stable. They've got a lot of stuff. They shoot hard. They fight hard. Are they the most exciting? No. Do they have the best rules? Absolutely not. But I'd probably sneak them on the end of A. I think they've had a very consistent good time. They can tag on the end of A with the Space Marines, and certainly you've seen very consistent runs for Votann, and people have kept having joy with them the whole way through this. Very stodgy and effective. So yeah, I'd put them in there quite happily. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our tier list. What do we think of that as a meta?
Pretty all right.
That's all right.
Yeah, looks pretty
You're
good.
always happy if things are in A and B, right? That's where you want it to be. You don't want anyone feeling bad about being in C and D, and you don't want anything that is oppressive. So you want the armies to be basically in 2 tiers, just below average and just above average.
And only 1 real army's in D tier.
Yeah.
And it's not, and it's also not really a D. We're just bored of it this time, something new, right? Like it's like, yeah. I think it's I think if there is a concern, it's that you've got quite a few C tier armies here that have books. Your Admech, your Sisters, your Tal. In theory, they have been served their rules, and it's obviously not. Yeah, it's not been a great time for them anyway. So it's kind of so in that sense. But yeah, very pretty healthy, balanced game. I think an expert can turn most of these into an event-winning army right now, which is a very, very cool place to be. Alex Fowler says Demons top of A feels intuitively wrong. What a world we live in. Yeah, I mean, I think our A tier and our B tier, you could shuffle things around for sure. You could definitely move things about, but I think that gives you a pretty reasonable spread of different things. Harley says, Tom, you're going to get a slap Votann above guard. I will happily play into your guard, and you can table me in about 3 turns because that's how that matchup goes. If you want, Harley, to demonstrate your dominance, that's absolutely fine.
And if you fail to do that, Harley, you're shit at the game.
That is literally what you have to do. Yeah, absolutely. And George Vincent says, "Did IK eat a nerf? I thought they were going well at the moment. Yeah, no, they are. I think IK are going great. I think they haven't. I wouldn't say there's tons of excitement around them. It's not there's loads of people flocking to play them, right? It's like, and we always kind of factor that in a bit as well. We're always interested in how the player base are going and the community's going as well. And I think there's a dedicated core of people enjoying Imperial Knights, and they are good. But it's not like, oh my goodness. Ultimately, it's the index attachment has just sort of aged back into being good again. That's not like crazy levels of excitement, is it?
No.
Wonderful. Well, you all rock. Thanks very much for tuning in. Do hit the old like and subscribe. Alex, Tom can tell you exactly how IK are doing right now. That doesn't count. That was Jack Titan's no Overwatch fucking Flavor Night. Sulk, stupid Jack Titan.
Takes down Ynnari all day long.
Stupid
classic
rules.
type.
Stupid, clever Jack Titan nonsense. We're going to go away now. You're all awesome. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Love you, bye.